PodcastCoug Season 4, Episode 12.
You're listening to the PodcastCoug Radio Network with your host, James Laurie. The PodcastCoug is your weekly Coug On Demand show featuring all things Cougs and Washington State Cougar football. And now, here is your host, PodcastCoug.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the PodcastCoug. I am James Laurie, the PodcastCoug, and you are listening to the PodcastCoug, where we are all 30 minutes Cougar football, 30 minutes Coug talk. We're talking about our crazy instant classic thriller against Oregon State and Anthony Gordon, Max Borghi, our next game, which is tomorrow against Montlake, the Apple Cup, the 112th, right? The Huskies tomorrow, and it is Thanksgiving. Hey, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Welcome back to the PodcastCoug. Happy Thanksgiving. Hope you're having a great day with your family, your loved ones, your in-laws, your outlaws, and all that good stuff. And here we go, Apple Cup time. Of course, Cougs 6-5, 3-5 in conference. Huskies identical, 6-5, 3-5. Cougs win another thriller, a thriller actually. I mean, can you believe that game? On the edge of your seat, Oregon State 54-53. Instant thriller and classic, right? A 4-point loss to UCLA, okay? A 4-point loss to Arizona State, and a 2-point loss to Oregon, right? Think about that. Where would we be with that 4-point loss to UCLA, right? Arizona State 4, and Oregon 2 points. Those 3 games, we were so close, and we lost them all, and we actually were able to, with Oregon State, pull it out and finish, right? Washington State has been on the wrong side 3 times this season, but when the Cougs needed it the most, right? We made the big plays. Finally, it went our way, right? Crazy as it was, on the edge of your seats, 2 seconds left. Are you kidding me? Actually, 4 seconds, but 2 at the game end. And Husky fans just admit that, their games are boring. And we're going to talk about Montlake the second half of the PodcastCougs. But the Cougs are not boring, right? We're entertaining. Even the non-casual fan. I was in this retail store the other day, actually yesterday, and this lady's going, "Go Cougs" to me, and she just, you guys are so entertaining. So even the general public, I mean, how entertaining is that, right? Are we at Arco and Gordon and Borghi? I mean, what incredible! It's just absolutely amazing. So this season, people are just talking about the Cougs, and a lot of people are hating the Huskies, right? Obviously everybody thought the Huskies were, and that's why predictions, nobody knows, right? The beginning of the season, Huskies would win the North or Oregon. People got that right. We got that right on Oregon, but yeah, it was a defense back to Oregon State, stuffing Oregon State 4th and 4, with Anthony Gordon putting together his most impressive drive of the season, 10 plays, 58 yards, ending a powerful, in-your-face statement with Max Borghi. Just amazing, 54-53. Much improved Beavs. Here they go. Second-year Jonathan Smith. Absolutely incredible. I see great things happening in the future. Watch out for the Beavs next year, right? What a game. Just, watch out. In about 4 years from now, they're going to, Oregon State, right? I mean, it's possible, right? They're recruiting. I mean, Jonathan Smith, I've got some, good things, good feeling about him. So, good going for, obviously, what a huge letdown for the Oregon State fans, right? So, but you know what? So much offense, right? And just so little defense. I mean, what a game. 12 different receivers. Aesop Winston Jr., Brandon Arconato, right? Desmond, Tay, Max Borghi. I mean, it was everybody, right? And Gordon connected actually with 9 different receivers against the Beavs and hit 4 of them for touchdowns. So the Beavs scored about 8 of their 15 possessions, and the game was remember, it was a tribute to Tyler Helinski. The Helinski family is up. Mark and Kim Helinski came up, and of course it was senior day. And what a great way to finish off a good note. A good note to Tyler and all the seniors. And really, that game was all about Tyler. The game, the victory was for Tyler, and just closing that that up, right? And all the seniors. And, of course, bowl eligible. We've got Las Vegas, Cheez-It in Phoenix, and Redbox in Santa Clara. And, we're just not going to forget that Oregon State game, right? A lot of people are saying, I'm not going to forget the UCLA game. Well, I am. I'm moving on, right? We're going 7-5, right? We're not going to forget that thriller with Oregon State, right? And so, it's just, it has put everything in a total different trajectory, right? I mean, when it's all said and done, you need that win to go to a bowl, right? And so, and it kind of salvages the season, right? Definitely puts a better taste in your mouth, especially heading into the AC tomorrow. So when you step back and look at the program as a whole, and I mean, that means to win, to be a solid 5 straight bowl trips, right? Solidify that. So 5 in a row for bowl games. And Washington State just says that where the program's headed, what the direction the program is going. Mike Leach and his staff and his athletes have taken their program to really, as we know, to another level, and it's got a lot of people spinning their heads. I love how love how watching Coach Peterson say, where does he get these guys, these quarterbacks? This isn't a 4-star. Nobody recruited him. I mean, just absolutely amazing. Anthony Gordon. Honestly, it's just sad that we've got him for one year, and 2 more games. It's really sad because I think he is absolutely the most remarkable quarterback to ever play for Washington State. And yeah, it's great for the season and a chance heading into the Apple Cup with 3 straight wins, 3 in a row, right? We can finish 8-5, and I actually can see that. Sounds crazy. Yeah, last year we all predicted us to beat the Huskies, and the year before, and it's 6 in a row, right? 8-5, 7-5. I can see that happening, but either way, we're going to a bowl, and we hit 6 wins. So even in a down year, a disappointing year, you're still going to a bowl game, right? So just think about this program has risen to where it's at this point, and it's just at times it's been disappointing, that close to UCLA, ASU, Oregon, but Oregon State win was so important. The way it played out, the final, the finish, on your edge of your seat finish. Wow, it's just incredible, right? It's just turned everything around. The momentum, unlike Montlake, they have no momentum. They're like giving up, right? They're giving up on their season. We're talking about the University of Washington. People feel that they've given up. We're going to talk about that in the second half of the podcast, Coug. But back to the Beavs, they must have been just crushed by losing that game. Now, they've got a chance to beat Oregon in the Civil War, and we'll see if Oregon really, steps up and plays their game. But it's been since 2003 since Oregon State has beaten the Ducks. So anyway, our game against Oregon State was one for the ages. Literally took months, if not years, off your life. What a fourth quarter. Are you kidding me? I mean, you can't write that. That's textbook. That's a movie. That's a video game. So anyway, first of all, we love the call from Jonathan Smith to go for it on 4th down, playing into their strength, never wanting to give the ball back to the Cougs and play into our strengths for their weakness. So thank you, Coach Jonathan Smith, for making that call. One of those decisions that you're going to look back on, and always question if you made the right call. That's the 4th down stop by the Cougs that was just huge, and that call from Jonathan Smith was very aggressive. But in my mind, if they punted, right? If they punted and didn't go for it on 4th down, I think that they would have driven the length of the field. That's a much tougher to get in the end zone. I mean, with the time left, he should have just punted away, right? So it was truly a divine deal that Jonathan Smith decided to go for it, and we stopped him, right? So if he had made that 1st down, the Beavs probably or could have won if they would have made the 4th down conversion. But the momentum, the shift, getting the 4th down stop, and then being able to drive the field, I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. Then anything Gordon and his receivers had, they had to make plays, right? And so the offensive line protected Gordo really well all day, and he was back cooking steaks, right? So of course, that's That is a term on the Pac-12 network. I forgot his name, the guy that says that, going back cooking steaks. Love it all day long. He had all the time in the world. And what's interesting is when you've got a defense in Oregon State and you've got the leading sack leader. I mean, really, Oregon State's got the leading sack leader in the conference and actually the country. And he was a non-factor the entire game. Most importantly, the last drive of the game should have been a factor. Still a non-factor. Where was he? Still give credit to the offensive line. They really played well all night, and that's 2 weeks in a row where we've been looking for guys and making some plays, and guys just stepped up. And a huge win against Oregon State. So, I think that that's a turning point for Washington State, although it wasn't perfect by all means. Certainly a defensive side of the ball, and we've got issues, right? We are the second worst in the conference for defense. I mean, it's just pretty bad, and hopefully we can, improve on that for next year and really reload on the defensive side. So, but you know what? What matters is a win, and pretty cool. Like I said, a textbook game, a video game thriller, incredible. But did you notice the new set of playmakers? I mean, we saw Renard Bell was showing up. Calvin Jackson was back there. McIntosh, second running back. Where did he come from, right? So he was there. So really, it was neat to see the confidence going into the fourth quarter on those last drives. And in the fourth quarter, when time is on and it's crunch time, Anthony Gordon continues to prove that he's the hottest quarterback in the United States, in the land, in the country. And he really commanded that game, right? Just a great comeback, good win, good leadership. Anthony Gordon leading his offense to the promised land, the Cougs to the promised land. Here we are at Montlake tomorrow. So the biggest play of the game, obviously, getting that score at the end. And I mean, Borghi from 2 yards out, and no doubt he's going to score. I mean, Oregon State thought we were going to Arconato, right? And I thought we were going to Arconato. And everybody thought we were going to Arconato. And everybody in the world thought we were going to Arconato, right? And they covered him perfectly. And we read right into that, and then handed off to Borghi right into the promised land. And, it probably was an act of God, would have been an act of God to stop Borghi from 2 yards out. So, everything happened just perfectly. Amazing how Jonathan Smith went right into it. Fourth down, a mistake, double coverage, Brandon Arconato. Simply amazing. And here we are, Apple Cup week, literally just sets us up for a potential huge win. Perfect day tomorrow. Everybody's going to be watching. Everybody going to see our offense. Are they going to shut us down? Who has stopped us really for putting a lot of points on the board? So I think it was Utah, but everybody else just cannot contain, right? So here we are, potential huge win tomorrow, Husky Stadium. Real quick on these passing yards for touchdowns of a season. It was basically, we had to go back to 2015. Luke Falk, he had broke some records. 2015, he had 38 touchdowns in the season, and then he had 38 again in 2016. And then Gardner came by last year at 38. And then it was Anthony is at 45 touchdowns right now for the single season passing record for touchdowns, 45. So, hey, we're going to talk about the Washington Huskies, right? Montlake, the Dawgs, the 112th edition of the Apple Cup right here next on the second half of the Podcast Coug.
Hey, Coug fans. You're podcasting with James Laurie and the Podcast Coug Radio Network. The Podcast Coug is your weekly Coug on Demand show, featuring all things Cougar football in Washington State. To help you get through the week, hit the subscribe button or check us out on iTunes, the App Store, iOS, Google Play, Stitcher, or at PodcastCoug.com.
Welcome back to the second half of the Podcast Coug. I am James Laurie, the Podcast Coug, where we are all things Cougar football. And happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Everybody, happy Thanksgiving. Cougs 3-5, actually 5-5 overall in conference. Of course, 6-5, 3-5. Huskies 6-5, 3-5. Cougs lost to the Dawgs, 6 in a row now. It is 6 in a row. We're going to talk about tailgating tomorrow at Montlake. The Podcast Coug is going to be there. Coug in Spain. I'm MI Coug. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes on the Podcast Coug. You guys come out and join us. If you're not going to be, if you're in King County, Pierce, Snohomish on the west side, coming up from Oregon, come down. If you're going to the game, make sure you come down and say hi. It's going to be a blast. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. But here's the deal. For the past 8 years, right? Leach treats the Apple Cup like every other game, right? He knows the big deal, right? Especially the fans. He knows every day in his life somebody says, beat the Huskies. And he didn't realize when he got here in 2012 that it was that type of rivalry as much, but he knows now. But he doesn't change, right? He's a pure air raid. He's the grandfather. He's the grandfather of the air raid, and it's pure. And there's nobody in the United States that runs it like Mike Leach, right? So, but in the past, our team just doesn't show up. I mean, look at Gardner last year, and then the snow came right during the game. Unbelievable. We couldn't even see in front of us. Like, you can't even see the ball 1 foot in front of you. Are you kidding me? So, we just don't show up. And honestly, I think I think this year is a different year. Yes, last year I thought we were going to win. So did you. Everybody, right? The year before, we thought we were going to win. There's guys that say, okay, prove it till I'm wrong. I'm going to take the Dawgs until you can prove me otherwise. You cannot continuously, well, the USC does have an advantage over us in the Coliseum. So, there's a time and place for everything. There's a season. And it's not like we're Oregon State, not this Oregon State this year, but it's not like we're 0-11 every year. We're highly competitive. We have weapons, but I think we're 7-5 tomorrow. Tomorrow we're 7-5. But Walden made the game a big deal. Had some upsets along the way. Beat the Huskies several times. Mike Price, same thing, made it a big deal. I remember Mike Price running out on a Trojan horse, and he would be, that was Walden. Walden would run out on the field with various characters and try to just get the crowd going and rile people up, rile the fans and the team. But Walden made a big deal. Mike Price made the big deal. Doba beat, Doba's last game before he retired in Seattle. Before he left, he beat the Huskies. Beat Jake Locker, right, with Alex Brink, right? Touchdown to Brandon Gibson late in the game. So yeah, they made it a big deal. It's hard for us fans to have any confidence when you know that the team just isn't going to show up and doesn't. So tomorrow it's tough. Perfect weather. A little cold, a little crisp. Couldn't ask for a better, clear, sunny day. Apple Cup, Montlake, So emotions on the fan base is huge, and it's one of the greatest rivalry games in the country, right? So now on computer, not on paper. Now Mike Leach does use paper, but on computer, right? Washington is superior in talent. Just in talent. I don't care how young they are, that they're superior talent across the board, and with the exception of USC or Oregon, they have better talent just on computer. They really do. Everybody. We've got mainly all 3-star guys, and we cannot compete with them at all. But honestly, I think, Gordon is the most talented quarterback in college football, in all of college football, right? I haven't seen anyone besides, anyone. I haven't seen every quarterback out there, obviously, but how can you get better than Anthony Gordon? I mean, are you kidding me? His quick release, and there are NFL guys that are waking up to him. No question about it, right? In fact, there's going to be scouts there at the game tomorrow at the Apple Cup. But let's look at the UW Colorado game. No doubt Washington top to bottom across the board has far better talent than the Buffaloes. And then they lose the game by 31. Are you kidding me? So there's something going on. And it's safe to say that Peterson, will get his team ready for tomorrow like he always does. Will Mike Leach? I honestly think that he doesn't have to, because Gordon's going to play and show up. I mean, Gordon is he's going to do it, right? I mean, we're going to end the season 8-5. I really believe we're going to end 8-5. So 11 games in a Husky season marked by unperformance and a disappointment. It's really not really true. So perhaps, in terms of scheme and quality of athletes, Leach is accurate, but it's undeniable that Washington this year is missing something, a spark, a swagger, a strength, their strength of conviction. I mean, it just gives the Cougs a golden opportunity to end the 6 years of humiliation against Chris Peterson. I mean, yes, it's an unstoppable offense, except against the Huskies, who have not only stopped us, but they make it look like a joke. I mean, Washington defensive coordinator, we've talked about Jimmy Lake, right? And then he's done everything but taunted Leach, the stubbornness when it comes to the air raid. Last year, Jimmy Lake noted how the Cougs do the same thing every year in and year out. He makes a really good game plan on how to scheme against our offense every year. He really does. In 2016, after the Huskies blew us out 45-17, Jimmy Lake called the Apple Cup, his favorite game of the year. We know what they're going to do. They're going to throw the ball 60 times, It really makes game planning really easy. And so, after last year's victory over Gardner Minshew, Cougs, that snowstorm in Pullman, next year, you would think that Mike's going to throw a little bit of a curveball, but it's very easy to know what you're going to get. I mean, like I mentioned, the pure air raid, but knowing, that, who our head coach is, he just doesn't, it's pure air raid. So, hopefully he's going to make some adjustments. We've got to give Borghi the ball at least 15 times, and that would be amazing if we did. 12 to 15 minimum for Max Borghi, like I mentioned on other episodes of the podcast, Coug. But that's, we're talking about it's just Washington's domination in this Peterson-Leach version. If you go back from 2013 to 2018, the Cougs have yet to score in the first quarter in any of those 5 games. Now, they've won 6 in a row, but we go 5 back. We have not scored 1 point in the first quarter of the last 5 games. And there has been 20 turnovers in this series in the last 5 games. That's crazy. It's like it's like zombie. It's like we don't show up. We just fall right down. We just lay down. So you think that's, you'd think that what Leach is going to do a little bit of making some adjustments, tomorrow. But like I said, it's pure air raid, so don't expect it. But you'd think we are going with Max Borghi, give us some impact, just an impact against the Huskies, right? Borghi has 740 yards and 111 carries. He averages like 7 yards per carry. It's really 6-7, but he's got 69 catches, 508 yards in the backfield. So remember, there's no Myles Gaskin this year. And you gotta love that. No Myles Gaskin. Are you kidding me? So, I mean, that's in itself is amazing that we don't have Myles Gaskin, or that the Huskies don't have Myles Gaskin, right? So I like our chances. 7-5. Cougs rank last in the Pac-12 in rushing, and we run the ball more than 100 fewer times than anybody in the Pac-12. And but get this, in Washington's 5 losses this year, one constant thing that they beat their opponents by the running game each time. They've been beaten by the running game each time. So the 5 teams they've lost to, Cal, Stanford, Oregon, Utah, and Colorado, they averaged 171 yards on the ground. Colorado ran for 207 last week on the 2014 upset win over the Huskies. So you might point out that that should really matter, considering the Cougs have the second worst defense in the Pac-12, giving up 470 yards a game. But 3 of the 4 teams below Washington State are Colorado, Oregon State, and Stanford. And the Huskies' offense died against all of them. That's very encouraging. So, despite having one of the most physically gifted quarterbacks in the nation, they have yet to find consistency on offense. Jacob Eason, are you kidding me? He's thrown 5 interceptions in the past 3 games. Touted as the Messiah for preseason, and 2 of those 5 picks in the last 3 games, 2 of them have been returned for touchdowns. The team has given up. Unless they turn around tomorrow, Washington Huskies, the Dawgs of Montlake, have given up their season. And that's a theory. We don't know that yet. We're going to find out tomorrow, right? So Washington is, like mentioned earlier on the podcast, Coug, they're a more talented team, and but it hardly matters in rivalry games. You've heard it many times. My dad's, you got to throw out all the records. For years, you got to throw out all the records. Doesn't matter. It's a rivalry game. So here we have the Dawgs. While losses to Utah and Oregon are justifiable, it's harder to rationalize the defeats against Stanford and Cal, and especially Colorado, that we boat raced right in Pullman. So the Cougs should, I think we're going to be motivated. I really do. I think it's over. I think we're going to be out there tomorrow, motivated. And then, Jimmy Lake's comments, that the Cougs desperately want to, we want to end the losing streak and prove Jimmy Lake wrong, because he knows how to beat us, right? He does. Huskies are playing at times like a team that just wants to end the season, like I'd mentioned. And, on the other hand, their 5 losses have come by an average of just 5 points, and very close. So it's, you can also flip that coin. Their losses have been fairly close. So it literally comes down to 5 plays and every game. So really close one. Remember, the Cougs are in position to finally change the outcome. Again, Gordo, Arco, Borghi, we've got to prove that Jimmy Lake is going to be wrong this year. And so, it's just, again, and I was so concerned last week when Arconato got hurt. I felt that he landed on his hand or his wrist, and I thought he was out for the season. No question. He was in the tent for a long time. Of course, there wasn't any updates on the TV side of it, but it's so nice to have Arco back. Borghi is healthy. Gordo, it's Thanksgiving. We're going to be thankful for everything we have in our lives. Thank you for be thankful for our health, but we can't take for granted that we've got some healthy guys on our team, right? They're all healthy. We got to be thankful for that. Let's stay healthy. Hey, tomorrow it's the unofficial Wazoo Watch Die Hard Cougs tailgate tomorrow. Unofficial Wazoo Watch tailgate, Die Hard Cougs. Hey, if you're going to the game, go to the north parking lot. It's called the E1 or the E1A parking lot, just north of their fitness center, right north of the stadium. And you're gonna just look for a silver Mylar balloon with a huge W for Washington State, and it's silver. And it's Mylar. I look for it in the air. There's going to be like 3 Coug Washington State football Mylars just under the W. And so look for that. That's where we're going to be hanging out. Cougs in Spain is going to be there from Wazoo Watch. We've got other guys showing up, guys from Die Hard Cougs, and a bunch of Cougs are going to show up. We're going to have some refreshments, some food. It is a BYOB, but come by, or we're going to be there early in the morning. We've got the Tyee parking again, E1, E1A parking lot. Look for the Mylar balloons. It's going to be a lot of fun. I believe that there's rumor that KHQ TV from Spokane is going to be dropping by, or looking for us anyway, to do a little story for their Spokane NBC affiliate station. We've got a canopy tent. Of course, it's a black GMC Envoy. So WSU plates are on the Envoy, and should be a lot of fun. Game is at 1 o'clock. Of course, we're going to be there really early, like 6:30 in the morning when the gates open. And then, of course, after the game, it'll be a lot of fun, too. So swing by either before and after. Say hi to the Podcast Coug, M.I. Coug, Coug in Spain, and a bunch of other guys are going to come. So, hey, thanks for listening to the Podcast Coug. That's it for episode 12, the fourth season of the Podcast Coug. It's Cougs versus the Dawgs, Apple Cup 2019. It's the 112th year, 1 p.m. tomorrow on Fox. Catch us at the tailgate tomorrow. We're going to see you. Let's go 7-5, and let's go Cougs.
You've been listening to the Podcast Coug Radio Network with your host, James Laurie. The Podcast Coug is your weekly Coug on Demand show featuring all things Cougs and Washington State Cougar football. This has been a presentation of the Podcast Coug Radio Network. Find us at podcastcoug.com.